Hi, I hope you're doing well. My name is Bruna, and today we're going to talk about Persephone, the goddess of the Underworld. We have already made a video about her myth, so if you haven't checked it out, please check it out because it really gives a lot more context on who this goddess really is. As I've told you before, Persephone is Demeter's daughter, and she has two phases of her life. The first one, when she was called Kor, she was the maiden. And the second one, when she actually becomes the queen of the underworld side by side with Hades, and she becomes Persephone. A woman can be influenced by both archetypes throughout her life, Kor and Persephone's. One can grow into the other, or both can be existing at the same time in a woman's psyche. Before we go on, I really wanted to clarify something. I will be talking a lot about the relationship between a mother and a daughter, and when I say woman, I do mean people who have wombs, people who have uteruses, because we're talking here about archetypes, and archetypes don't suit genders, archetypes suit people. And when I do say mother, I do not mean that you need to have a woman that is your mother in your life. No, you can have a mother figure in your life. All this is very flexible and it needs to be adjusted to your own family. And if you ever want some help to interpret how this dynamics work in your family, let's just have a talk and we'll understand together how this fits to you and your particular case. Okay? Alrighty then, let's move on. Kor's archetype is much more related to an innocent girl. She doesn't know exactly who she is yet, and the things that she loves, her desires, and her strengths. Possibly because she hasn't even experienced enough to actually know that. She has been under her mom's wing for a long time. A good way of understanding how Kor deals with life is to think of the Never Never Land of Peter Pan and Wendy, where everyone just stays forever a kid. If a woman does grow beyond this archetype, she will act more like Wendy, who left the Never Never Land to grow up. Whereas if you continue and stay Kor for the rest of your life, you will be saying, no, I want to be a kid forever, and I don't want to grow past this at all. So Kor's archetype is quite passive compared to others, and she's the type of person who is going to agree with others very easily and follow their rules very easily. She's a very compliant person, agreeable, obedient, following rules. She's very malleable as a person, very flexible. When she's in a relationship, she tends to change for the person. So she tends to look like the ideal woman that her partner actually is looking for. I've seen this in many friends of mine, to be honest. In each relationship that they were, you can see how they change according to the preferences of the partner instead of just maintaining who they are, because at that point, they still don't necessarily know who they are and which preferences they have. So for them, it's easy to just change accordingly. The turning point is when Kor is captured by Hades and taken to the underworld by force. At this moment, Kor has to face all her shadows. She has to face her demons. She has to really go into the underworld, which is a metaphor for our unconscious. So she has to confront her fears, she has to confront her shadows, she has to understand her limiting beliefs, her behavior patterns, things that she was never really aware of. She, for the first time, obliged by someone else, by an external force, has to encounter all this and face this. This is when she becomes Persephone, the one that brings light to the dark. This is when she understands how important it is to go deep into our unconscious, so she can go from what we call the real world to our unconscious world, where we find our dreams, our fears, our hidden shadows. So we can think of Persephone as the embodiment of the feminine energy. So she is receptive, passive, inwards oriented, delicate, the nurturer, very malleable and flowy. Persephone is this archetype of the daughter. She has this very, very intense bond with her mother. And this makes her into a person who wants to please her mother, so she's obedient, she follows her rules, and is very cautious with everything that the mother points out to be a danger in her life. So this dynamics can create a dependency between both of them. This obviously is going to change according to which archetypes are ruling the mother, because the mother is going to kind of set the tone to this relationship. Okay, Bruna, but how can I actually identify this archetype in a person or in myself? Let's think of a young Persephone. A young Persephone is going to be well-behaved, polite, and is going to always want to please others. Like any other archetype, it will only develop in case the parents and the environment around the kid actually encourage it to be developed. So if you have super protective parents, for instance, that will say, oh no, let me do this for you all the time, or that will say, be careful, watch out, don't run. This super protectiveness can send a message to the kid saying, hey, you cannot do this by yourself, you're not capable, let me do it for you, you need help. And this can turn the kid into a very dependent person. Or maybe the kid cannot make decisions so fast, right? A Persephone kid has a hard time making decisions. So if the parents don't have the patience and just push the kid to make a decision, the kid might just decide on something that she understands that the parents prefer, instead of actually trying to understand what she really likes and what she would prefer to do. So parents that are going to really encourage this archetype in the healthiest way possible would be parents that would allow the kid to trust her own subjective instincts. Give to the kid enough opportunities to experience different things, to allow the kid to choose by herself what she wants in her own time. And also parents that are not going to all the time be around her saying, be careful with this, be careful with that. It needs to give enough freedom for the kid to grow independently. If we think of work and what would suit best these archetypes at work, a core archetype will, because she's more of a young woman, she's not going to put her focus on work, so she might just hop from one job to the other. But in case of a Persephone archetype, she can really dedicate to work, but she will probably dedicate to work that is more psychic and mystic, psychological, artistic, that will really use this subjectiveness that she has that is so powerful and so mystical in her. Let's talk about some difficulties that some Persephone women might develop in their lives in case they have this archetype in excess. The fact that she cannot really say directly what she wants can lead her to maybe try to lie or manipulate in some way other people in order to get her what she wants indirectly, because she doesn't want to change the perception of what the other think of her. So she wants this to be maintained, so she might go through other ways to get what she actually wants. She can also be a people pleaser. Because she doesn't want anyone to get angry at her, she will probably just treat these people, like important people in her life, as kings and queens. She's going to try to treat them the best way possible in order to avoid conflict and in order to avoid these people to get mad at her. If in excess, this archetype can also sometimes lead to narcissism. She can be very much focused in herself and always need others to compliment her in order for her to actually feel good with herself. When Kor was abducted and held captive in the Underworld, she had a really long time in which she was very sad, she wouldn't smile, and she wouldn't eat. This shows the tendency of a Persephone woman to feel sad and maybe even fall into depression. Obviously, this is not always going to happen, but there is a tendency that a Persephone woman can get in touch with these feelings. And the last thing I'd like to point out as a difficulty for a Persephone woman is the difficulty in committing to relationships. For a core archetype, committing to relationship can be very hard for her because she has a hard time making decisions and committing to things for a long period of time. So if you're a Persephone woman and you want to commit, you need to really confront this inner core inside you and grow past this and understand that making commitments can also help you grow and transform yourself and your life. What happens to many women in this case to grow past this core archetype and grow into a more mature Persephone is when they're in a moment in their lives where they have to face life on their own and they have to make it on their own and take care of themselves. And this helps them grow into a grown woman. The beautiful thing about these archetypes is that when one manages to grow from core to Persephone, she acquires so much wisdom. She gets in touch with this spiritual, psychic, mystic part of herself that is so powerful. And she's now capable of really going from the underworld to the upper world. And she can now actually move into one archetype to the other as circumstances require her to. And the beautiful contradiction that lies in Persephone's archetype is that she really influences a woman to be more passive and compliant. And this can really lead to other people trying to dominate her. However, her archetype is also the one which enables and allows the most possible routes for growth. And we can see this on her myths. She went through so many phases, and in each one of them she changed and transformed herself and grew in some way. And this is the same thing that happens to women that follow this archetype. They are open to change and to growth through transformation. And this is something absolutely beautiful about it. Did you identify any of Persephone's characteristics in yourself? I have to say that I certainly did. I have a very strong Persephone in me. So reading and learning about her is something that really nourishes me, because I also understand myself better and I can relate a lot to her myth and her story and her archetype. So if you have any questions or any comments, just drop them below and let's talk more about these goddesses and how they actually act and influence you specifically. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.